Hi, this is Anthony with TradingBTC.com. Today's May 7th, 2019. We wanted to go over a few of the currencies that we're taking a look at. And what we've done with our proprietary oscillator here is we, from time to time, will overlay the oscillator on top of the price chart so that we can take a look to see if there's any divergences that show up. That'll give us an idea of the direction and the momentum of the price chart. So this first one here is BTC. You can take a look here and see that the oscillator had moved up quite a bit, and as it started to lose momentum to the upside, you can see the pullback here, and then the oscillator turned back to the upside, and price is leading up the oscillator at this point. And so we had put out a report a few days back that we thought Bitcoin can get to the 6,300 level roughly, and we still think that is intact. And we want to do a comparison of how this chart looks with our oscillator being overlaid the price on some of the other coins as well, so that you can take a look and see what's developing. So second chart we have is Ethereum. Now you can take a look, and the oscillator had been again leading the price higher. So here we had the oscillator moving up. It was pulling the price up basically. We had a big pullback. The oscillator started coming back down, and then we see the oscillator bottom and start turning back up as price is moving up. Now we get another pullback here from about the 188 level all the way down to 146, and then price started to move back up again. Well, the oscillator had lagged behind and still continued to go down for another 4 or 5 days, and then went sideways. And we had just put out a report a day or two ago that the oscillator was turning back to the upside, and you can see prices trying to make another move to the upside. We put out a report saying that we thought Ethereum can get to the 205 level, and we still think that's intact as well. But again, what we're trying to show here is the divergence in the oscillator, and you'll see that in just a couple charts here. Let's go to the next one. The next one is a smaller coin called Electronium, and you can see here there's sideways consolidation going back to March, early March, and it's pretty much gone sideways ever since. The oscillator's had its move up, its move down, its move up, its move down, and now you can take a look and see the oscillator is now broken out of the range that it's been in the last 30 days or so. And so that would suggest that the price is going to get pulled up, because you can see that as these dots widen, that means the momentum is accelerating to the upside. So my expectation would be is that we're going to see price start to get pulled up by the momentum, and we should see a pretty decent move in Electronium. And let's take a look at where these divergences start to show up. So the next coin we have is Binance, and this is the US dollar calculated by TradingView. And you can take a look and see that the oscillator was, again, when we overlay it on the price chart, was above the price. So in other words, it was pulling the price higher, and then the momentum started to slow down. Even though it was positive momentum, it started to slow down. You can see the oscillator coming down, and you can see price stopped moving higher here and started going sideways, and then started moving back up again, and it then bottomed the oscillator, started turning back up again, and now we see the oscillator starting to move back down. Price was staying the same in the 22 to 25 price range since about April 19th, but you can see the oscillator had been moving down, which means it was losing momentum to the upside, and it was kind of giving you an advance notice that there may be a pullback coming. And we can see here that the oscillator is now starting to accelerate. Again, the dots widening is telling you that the momentum to the downside is accelerating. And we can see here the pullback started 4 or 5 days ago, started to accelerate yesterday. Today there was an announcement about a hack at Binance, so that is why we saw this move down here. The move was bought, and so we can see it trading back at the $22 range. But if you notice, it hasn't affected the oscillator. The oscillator is continuing to move down. So in order for the oscillator to stop going down and go at least sideways or back higher, you'd have to see a pretty big move to the upside. So if we're not going to get those big moves to the upside in Binance, then the oscillator is going to continue down, and that would suggest that it's going to pull Binance coin down. Let's take a look at EOS. We put out a report today saying that EOS looked like it was going to be moving down to about the 380 price target. And the reason we had suggested that was you can take a look at the oscillator here, and once price started to consolidate after the pullback, the oscillator continued on down, and you can see it's continuing to the downside. And that would suggest that this uptrend line here is not going to hold, and that the price is going to start moving down below the uptrend line, and the oscillator is going to accelerate to the downside. Let's take a look at the next chart. This is Omisigo, and you can take a look here, same situation. The oscillator was moving up with the price, and then price started to pull back, and then it it bottomed here in terms of stopped going down, went sideways, and had a little bit of a couple of days of up move, and then right back down, and it's pretty much going sideways. But if you notice the oscillator, it's continued to go down, which means it's losing momentum to the upside. And if the oscillator starts to move back down, it's going to accelerate to the downside, and that would mean that the price is going to get pulled down. And so you can kind of see, if we go back to Bitcoin, the oscillator, it pulled back along with price, went sideways, and is trying to curl back to the upside. If you look at ETH, same thing. It pulled back, went sideways, it's trying to curl back to the upside. Electroneum is suggesting that an up move is coming, because the oscillator is pulling the price, should be pulling the price higher. If we go to Binance, again, the oscillator is now accelerating to the downside, so that would suggest a bigger move is coming to the downside in price. We look at EOS, same thing. The oscillator had continued down, had only 1 day of moving sideways, and then the oscillator continued to accelerate to the downside. Price has not started to catch up with the oscillator, but that's what that's the expectation that we have, is that price is going to start catching up with the oscillator to the downside. And then we've got Omisigo, same thing. The oscillator has not kept up with the price going sideways, and a couple days to the upside. You can see the oscillator is divergent to the opposite side. XRP, same situation. Price bottomed, tried to make an up move, came back down. It's pretty much gone sideways since about April 24th, and yet the oscillator is continuing to the downside. BCH, same situation. Bitcoin Cash, oscillator is continuing to move to the downside. Litecoin, same situation. Oscillators moving to the downside. So again, these are the oscillator is suggesting that we're going to start seeing price move down on these other altcoins. Again, comparing that to Bitcoin, you don't see that in this oscillator. Ethereum, you saw a little bit, but the oscillator did bottom, move sideways, and now it's got to choose a direction. we believe the direction was going to be to the upside, because you can see the oscillator turned in this move here. And now if it continues to move higher, then the oscillator is going to start moving back to the upside. That's completely different than what we're seeing in Binance, what we're seeing in EOS, what we're seeing in Amigo. Amigo, has already, the oscillator has already had some big moves to the downside, and then it's slowed down here, but you can still see the trajectory is still down relative to price. It's diverging from price. And then XRP, same situation. It's diverging from price, and so again, we believe that it's going to pull the price down. And we look at Bitcoin Cash, same situation. Next one is Litecoin, same situation. It appears like price is going to get pulled down. Stellar, now Stellar, you can tell that the oscillator is still above price. There really hasn't been the same type of move in Stellar as we were getting in some of these other coins. It just did not have a big up move. So the fact that the oscillator on Stellar is higher than price is again just due to the fact that we have it overlaid, but you can't really draw too much conclusions at this point, only because there wasn't that big spike in move with Stellar as there was the other coins. If we go to the next one, gas. This is the fuel that's used for NEO, and you can see the oscillator is continuing to the downside, and you can see gas price is actually starting to move down to catch up to the oscillator. Digitex, the day that it went down, this huge day, it was down like 75%. It's pretty much expected to see the oscillator moving down on this price, so it does suggest that we're going to see more declines in Digitex. But when the news came out that they were not going to be able to have their product live, the oscillator wasn't giving you any advance notice that something was going to happen. If we look at NEO, same situation. The oscillator is continuing down. You can see here that NEO is actually price-wise following the oscillator to the downside. So again, this is what we would expect in some of these other coins. Let's go to, for instance, Litecoin. So again, Litecoin, you have a low here of let's just call it $65. Right now, you still have a higher low in price, but yet the oscillators move down. And so when we go back to NEO, you can see that there was a higher low, and the oscillator was continuing down, and then price has completely just fallen apart. And so we expect NEO to continue on down, and it may not even hold the lows here at, let's say, $8. It looks like it may go below $8. Let's go to the next one, IOTA. IOTA came out with some good news about Jaguar, and there's not really as much of a divergence here in terms of a negative divergence. You can see oscillator was moving up. Price, this whole entire move here, the oscillator was above price, and then price started to decline. It's pulling the oscillator down in this case. Oscillator bottoms, price bottoms. We have a move to the upside. It rolled over, and now we still have a higher low in the oscillator. We have a higher low in price. So there's no divergence here, and that's the big point, is that there are times when we overlay our oscillator over price and you see big divergences, some to the upside, and in this case the electronium, you've got a positive divergence right now, meaning that the oscillator is not only pulling away from price, it also is higher than the highest point just in the last 60 days or so. So that's actually a way to say, okay, I'm going to look for something to come out positively on electronium, and that's why momentum is moving to the upside. versus looking at Litecoin, and the oscillator is continuing to lose momentum, and yet the price, even though it's a higher low from what the low was on April 29th, there's a negative divergence with our oscillator. So we're trying to highlight things to see or to look at that would give you an indication of when price is either going to move to the upside or start moving to the downside. And we use our oscillator when we specifically overlay it over price to try to give us that snapshot of what's happening underneath in terms of momentum, so that you can have some type of an edge to tell you what you need to do, whether you're in a position or you're looking to take a position. We overlay the oscillator so that we can try to get that edge. Continue on with another chart here, Populous. There have been a lot of reports about Populous owners of, or the people that run Populous apparently have been selling their coin, and you can see just steady selling, and yet price is trying to go sideways and bottom here at the dollar range, but the oscillator is continuing down. So that would suggest, again, the price is not going to stop at $1. There's more declines coming with Populous. So again, we just wanted to kind of give you a snapshot of what we were looking at, to kind of give you a heads up and say, look, it looks like underneath the surface there is a pullback coming. It may be a pretty nasty one, but if we're talking about Bitcoin, we're not seeing that yet, right? In fact, if we see Bitcoin continue to move to the upside and the oscillator turns to the upside, then it's not suggesting that we're going to get that pullback with Bitcoin, and you're going to see Bitcoin dominance increase. If the altcoins are moving down and yet Bitcoin is moving up, you're really going to see that Bitcoin dominance move to the upside. With ETH, again, we've got it. We do have a negative divergence, but we have the oscillator going sideways, and on this bar here, when it was up at the $180 range, obviously the oscillator, this dot, was higher, so it was moving up. When it pulled back and had a reversal, then it's still higher than this dot here, but it still has a decision to make. Is it going to be moving back up, or is it going to start moving back down? And in that case, we'll see the oscillator start moving back down, and that'll pull the price to the downside. So again, you've got Bitcoin, you've got Ethereum, you've got Electronium. Those three are the only three that we really see that are going to either hold up or maybe continue to move to the upside, where all these other ones look like momentum is moving to the downside and it's going to start bringing the price down. You can see here on this, just today, when the hack news came out, Binance came all the way down to 1957, and it pulled the oscillator down, and you can see almost price catching up with the oscillator. That's what we would expect with some of these other coins, with our oscillator showing this type of negative divergence. So that's about it for tonight, and we'll do an update for you and see if there's any other divergences that show up. So thanks a lot for your time in watching this, and like the video and share it if you can. Thank you.